So, in the very outset, let me thank Mr. Ramachandran for inviting us and giving us an opportunity to share some of the thoughts and experiences that I have regarding our spiritual tradition, our religion, and our spiritual practices. So this has been our tradition in India. Periodically, satsangis meet, devotees meet, and discuss on higher values and higher truths. Otherwise, when people meet, they engage in gossip, talk about money, power, politics, their neighbors. So at the end of that, such kind of discussion, we feel dissipate, distract. We feel uproot. And that's going on. That is called kutsang. Kutsanga. Kutsanga means where you create negative energy. When we come together, we can create negative energy, which makes you dissipate, distract, tired, weary. Whereas in satsanga, you feel integrated, you feel energetic, you feel good. You feel there is something to look forward to in life. There is some meaning in life. Life is not a meaningless phenomenon. It is something very meaningful. And when there is meaning in life, you feel energetic. If there is no meaning, then you feel completely sick. So most of us are sick because there is no meaning. You are not able to either discover a meaning or create a meaning. There is nothing to look for. There is nothing to struggle for. We simply eat and sleep and breathe and die. That is not a very impressive or enlightening proposition. So this kind of satsang is very important for our mental and spiritual and even physical and social health. This kind of satsang is necessary to experience life integrally and wholly. So those who are used to come to satsang and participate in satsang, they feel a different quality of life. Instead of going to the club and drinking and talking on unnecessary things, you come here and dwell on the higher values to discuss about the higher values, ethics, spirituality, God, love, compassion, those kind of values, devotion. And then we discover, as a result of this satsanga, satsanga means association with good people. Satta. Satta means truth. So one who has lived a life of truthfulness is called a sat or sanda. Sometimes you misuse that word also. Sanda Bindranwala. I don't know whether it is sanda or something else. But sometimes we may misuse. Or maybe in his circle he is venerated as a sant. But the real sant is one who has dedicated his life to the pursuit of truth and non-violence and loka sangra, the well-being of the world. He alone can be called a sant. Asanneva sabhavadi asad brahme viveda jeda asti brahmedi chet veda sandamenam tato viduridi. So one who believes that there are higher reality, and we all are born to seek that higher reality. That is the ultimate purpose of life. So one who believes like that and is ready to discipline himself for the pursuit and discovery of that is called a sant. The other person is called an asat. Sometimes don't we say asat? Asat get lost. Don't we say it sometimes? So asat is a person who believes that there is nothing higher in life to pursue other than money, power and pleasures, name and fame. So he lives in the little bubble of the ego, and beyond that he cannot go. So we want to break out of that bubble, and we want to develop wings and fly into the space of freedom, moksha. And the word used in Sanskritam is moksha. We want to get into it. And then moksha is a privilege of everybody, regardless of whether you are a educated or uneducated, rich or poor, man or woman, Indian or Pakistani, doesn't matter, Muslim or Hindu, doesn't matter. We are born to be free because essentially we are Satchidananda. Our essential nature is Satchidananda. So realizing that, as Ramana Maharshi said, Kristale mana sustada kriya bhakti yoga bodhascha nischit. He defines spirituality or spiritual pursuit as Kristale manaha sustada. Mind coming into abide in your own center, crystal. And that center is Satchidananda, pure bliss. So mind coming to abide in the center of pure bliss, the oceanic bliss, that is the purpose of all spirituality. Whether you follow the Bhakti Marga or the Jnana Marga or Yoga Marga or Karma Marga, doesn't matter. There are essentially these four paths. Some people who are essentially emotional follow the Bhakti Marga. Some people who are head-oriented, intellectual, they follow the Jnana Marga. Some people are body-oriented, they follow the Karma Marga. And some people have got enormous willpower, they follow the Yoga Marga. Yoga means controlling your desire, your mind, which requires tremendous willpower. When there are a couple of laddus sitting in front of you and nobody is around, can you resist taking that laddu? At least licking it and keeping it there. Because you cannot resist. So if you can resist your desire to indulge, then you become a yogi. Yoga, chittavritti, nirodha. Yoga is restraining chittavrittaya, various thought modification which explode into desire to embrace and indulge in the world of objects, of pleasures. So that power is called yoga. Or you can be a bhakti, purify your emotions, expand your emotions, and include the whole world in the ambit of your emotion, which is called compassion. So emotion must be purified to become compassion, love and compassion for the whole world. Then you are a bhakti marga, jnana marga. Jnana marga is the path of the intellect, where you understand intellectually that the whole world is a emanation or manifestation of the same truth. Truth is one. It is the same truth which manifests as the whole world. That understanding is the intellectual understanding. So with the power of your thinking, your mind, reflective thinking, not just analytic thinking. The analytic thinking is necessary to an extent, but finally you are able to put all those things together by reflective thinking. So you need both analytic thinking and reflective thinking, which is called Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. You can reach this understanding that everything is connected, nothing is disconnected, everything is a manifestation of that supreme reality called Brahman. Brahme Veda idam Sarvam nakinjana nasti. Other than Brahma, there is nothing. That knowledge is nothing. So karma marga is pursuing excellence in work. When you pursue excellence in work, then you are a karma yogi. Because whatever you do it perfectly, as perfect as possible. And that passion for perfection in work, if you are cooking sambar, or cleaning the vessels, or painting the wall, or scrubbing the floor, or stitching a torn cloth, piece of cloth, or arranging your room, whatever you do it perfectly, artistically, beautifully, aesthetically. That's the meaning of pursuing excellence. So when you pursue excellence in work, then you become a karma yogi. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. And to pursue excellence in work, you also need a balanced mind. If the mind is constantly reacting to the small pinpricks of life, then you will not have the focus and the discipline to pursue excellence. You will be lost in your own web of reactions, the cesspool of reaction. So the mind has to be balanced. Therefore, another definition of yoga is, not only yoga is karmasu kaushalam, yoga is not only pursuing excellence in work, yoga is samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is an ability to keep your mind in balance all the time, not reacting to the ups and downs of life, the success and failures, which are inevitable, like Chakravad Vartada. Those who are successful today will invariably become a failure tomorrow. Those who have been elected to power today, tomorrow Mayavadi will go and Mulayam Singh will come. Can you help it? You cannot. Chakravad Vartada. It goes like a wheel. The one portion of the wheel goes up, then the other portion of the wheel has to come down. This is natural. This is expected. So when these inevitable ups and downs happens in life, you have an ability not to react to them. Keep your mind in balance. That also is yoga. Yoga samattvamiti uchyate. So these are the 4 or 5 paths which our masters have discussed. For all this we need satsang. We need a theoretical understanding. We need a community of people. If you are alone, you may not have that insight and the strength and the opportunity and sometimes even the desire to pursue. So if there is a community, you can exchange ideas, you can learn from each other, and your faith will be reinforced by others' faith. So therefore satsang. In ancient days, all the rishis and the kings and the leaders of the community used to assemble once in 12 years in Naimishika Aranya. Naimishika Aranya. Naimishika Aranya means, Naimishika means which is momentary. Aranya means a forest. The forest of momentariness. That's the meaning of Naimishika Aranya. And this world is a forest of momentariness. Forest means there are many events which are happening. The trees and things grow in the forest. When you move into a forest, there are trees and creepers and plants and undergrowth and overgrowth. The forest is a dense, thick jungle of foliage. Sometimes even sunlight doesn't come. And through that you see animals running about, the lion chasing the deer running away from the lion, and the snakes and the birds. It's a big forest. So there are various events happening, things happening in the forest. But nothing is permanent in the forest. Forest is momentary. Everything is constantly changing. One tree falls down, another tree is growing. One fruit, ripe fruit falls down, another fruit is slowly coming into existence. A yellow leaf falls off, then a green leaf comes in. So a forest is not only a very complex phenomena and networked phenomena, a forest is also is constant change. Nothing is permanent in the forest. Our own body is a big forest. There are streams going on in the forest. There are trees growing in the forest. There are rocks in this body. There are various things going on. The body itself is a mini universe. That is why it is said Brahmandameva Pindandam. This Pindanda means this body, Pinda, this limited body. This body is Brahmandam. The whole universe is encapsulated in the body. So you don't have to go out to understand what the world is. You have to understand only yourself. Your embodiedness is to be understood. So when you understand that, you will know the whole world, isn't it? How does the housewife know whether the rice is cooked properly? She doesn't have to eat up the whole cooked rice to know whether it is cooked properly. She will only take one rice. One rice she takes, puts between her fingers and presses it. He doesn't even have to eat it. Because when you eat it, it becomes uchishta. No decent housewife will do that. Because this food has to be cooked, then it has to be offered to the Lord, then it has to be converted into prasadam, then it has to be given to the eldest in the family, the youngest in the family, to her husband, to other people, and finally whatever remains in the Akshaya Patra, that alone she can eat. Otherwise, Bhunjade te tvagam pabaha, e pajan yatmagarana. Those who cook and eat without giving to anybody, they are eating veritable poison. You may be eating a very delicious meal, but it all becomes poison in the body. First you cook, don't make it an uchishta by eating it, portions of that, and cook, give to the Lord as a nivedyam, take it back as a prasadam, then give it to the eldest in the family, youngest in the family, and to others, and then whatever remains, you eat. If nothing remains, you are upavas. You are on upavas. You are fasting. That life is a very noble life. So what I am saying is, whatever you do, you must have this kind of attitude. So this body itself is a veritable universe. By reflecting upon this body, we get an idea about what the whole world, universe is. So what I was saying is, every 12 years, people used to assemble the rishis, the kings, the householders, other householders, and the sannyasis, and the wandering monks. All of them used to assemble. So when they assemble from all corners of the country, they bring different stories, different experiences. And they have met different people. They have seen different lands, drank from different wells, ate in different homes, sees different landscapes. So all this wisdom they bring to the Naimishikaranya. And Naimishikaranya means this world of momentariness, because the world is fast changing. And in this changing world, we feel confused. Nothing is permanent. And when nothing is permanent, our mind gets baffled. Isn't it? Even our children. When they are 3 years old, they were very sweet and very smiling, and we want to embrace them, hug them. Without seeing them, we don't get sleep. Then another 4 or 5 years, they become 12 years old, 13 years old. They become mature. They become adults. And then they said, I don't know what happened to my grandson, he's completely changed. Earlier, whenever I do puja, he will come and sit with me, he will help me. When I meditate, he also used to meditate. Now when I go to the puja room, he goes to the computer room. Doesn't want to come to me. What happened?